There we go. Okay, I'm recording now. Good. Back to the regularly scheduled program. Okay, so again, here's our agenda for today. We're going to do some introductions, and then I'll take you through some of the download. Now, I want to spend a little bit of extra time on Excel statistics. In some classes, and now I gave you three choices essentially for the statistics package. A big part of this is going to be getting comfortable with the statistical analysis. Now, notice I'm not emphasizing the learning the tools, although we'll have to do that. The real thing is to be able to develop some comfort in it and some comfort with a dialogue, really a dialogue with the analysis that you do, to learn how to speak to your numbers and to hear how they speak to you back is really the way. Now, there's three pieces of enabling software which I gave you options on. One was Minitab. One was Sigma Excel. I highly recommend both of them. They're excellent. And the third was Excel Statistics. Excel Statistics is a free utility that I offer to people, and it's pretty good, actually, surprisingly good for it. But I will have to let you know it is an Excel. It's not even an add-on. It's Excel code. So there are some. Let me just say some quirks in it, and
I just clicked on the email.
There are some quirks in it, and the key is to be able to not freak out when you see those things, and just chill out and work through it. So we'll start on our path with that today. We'll do a small demo. We'll get you all set up. Okay, and then there's also tools and templates. And there are some new files that I put in there since I sent out the last email. Again, I didn't want to inundate you all at once, but we'll talk about those either at the beginning or maybe even at the end when we have a little bit of understanding of what's entailed in the class under our belts, so to speak. And then we'll walk through a little bit of the slide deck, and for those of you that know me, I am not somebody that likes to cover verbatim slides. I do like to talk about, I like to have a few slides and have them all done. In this class, a lot of the slides provide background material, so we'll cover the material completely, but I won't always cover, we won't always be saying, on this slide you'll note that blank, it says this. No, again, I want to have a dialogue, I want to have discussion, and the more we can do that, the more it's, I think, going to be helpful to you. Anyway, today we'll talk through an intro to Lean Six Sigma, which covers the slides essentially 1 through 115 in week 1. We'll talk about the principles of Lean Six Sigma, why we're going to do it, the structure of it, a little bit of the background of how Six Sigma came to be, and some of its successes, and we'll talk about the sort of the backbone of Six Sigma, which is a process known as DMAIC. And then at the end, and the little star I've got written here is just to remind me to tell you that we may or may not get through this last section, which begins on 106, which is on strategic improvement. I want to cover this fairly quickly in any event. And it talks through, it uses a framework called strategy maps, which is related to balanced scorecard. If you've run across that, great. If you haven't, the idea is just get the basics, and I think we'll move on. I also have as I want to be as open and as possible. I try not to use the phrase I want to be honest, because I'm always honest with people, or to be honest, or anything like that. However, what I wanted to say was that we're going to have a lot of things. One of the themes that's going to be running through this class, and something that you need to take to heart as a black belt, is there's a process for doing things, and that's fantastic, and there are tools that fit into that process. But if you start to think that in every project you have to use all of these different tools, it starts becoming about the tools and not about the improvement. And that's not what this is all about. What this is all about is finding where these tools fit well, and you can actually leverage them to make your business better for your customers, better for the bottom line, and better for the employees. really, so they can be more effective and do everything better. So that's it for today. We're going to go through this, and before I move on, what questions do you have before we move on? All good?
This is Tammy, Mark. I have a quick question.
You bet.
Are you going to be setting up individual hours throughout the week, or did I miss where I was supposed to get on that schedule?
No, we have office hours that are going to be set up on Friday. That's a great question. So I should probably add to the to this some logistics. I'm not sure that we can cover a lot of this right now. So we won't be doing one-on-ones unless you specifically want them, and then you can pull them from me, and we'll set up a meeting for that. But on Friday, okay, I'm going to have essentially open office hours. It'll be first come, first serve, and I'll give you a number, and anybody can call in and get the number. But we'll do screen sharing privately. So that's how we'll do it. We'll do it Friday afternoons. I think that was in the. I know you were in it in the beginning last time, and we did have one-on-ones, but it just turned out to be in a lot of cases impractical, and so I'll just tell everybody if you want that one-on-one, you have to pull it from me, and we can schedule it. I can be reasonably flexible. So great question.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Okay, what other questions do you have? That was a great one.
Yeah, Mark, it's Dan. You mentioned that the calls are recorded. What's the playback opportunities to listen to them again?
Great, excellent. So, so generally speaking, about 2 to 4 hours after we finish a lecture, or that session will be available to everybody in the class. Right now, it's hosted on YouTube. We're trying to move that as quickly as we can. To put it to a site that we'll have to, we'll pay for some of that, but we found last time that there were a number of people who couldn't view it at work because it was YouTube, so we want to eliminate that. But right now they'll be hosted on YouTube about 2 to 4 hours after they're finished, and you can view them as many times as you want. Did that answer the question reasonably?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. I did want to add to a couple of these. There were 2 other things I wanted to say at this point. One was on the videos, which is what we just said. In addition to the videos that are recorded for the class session, there are, when we get the assignments, there will be 4 assignments. You'll get the first one probably at the end of today. The last time we ran this, we had weekly assignments, and I'm combining those so we have them every 2 weeks, so that it's not so burdensome. There will be reading, there will be some problems, and there will be some requirements that you reach out to other people in the class to discuss things. But they're not meant to punish, and I want to be clear to everybody. When you get to the point that it's punishing you, stop and give me a call. And actually, it's even better if you if that happens, if you make that call before you're feeling sort of, hey, this is punishing me. I'm not really getting anything out of it. That's certainly not the point, is to make you struggle. So make sure you reach out when something like that happens. Okay, and then finally, in those assignments, there will also be a couple of times where I'll be asking you to watch additional videos that we won't cover. Sometimes those will be technical details that'll be in a video, but it'll be in the binder that you have. But I don't feel like it makes sense to take up a lot of class time to talk about things like, I don't know. Why a regression line has you want to look at a prediction interval rather than a confidence interval. That's great, but those are really technical details that probably make sense to take offline. Again, realizing that you can, and encouraging you to call me anytime you want, to go as deep as I can possibly go. The last thing on logistics I want to talk about is certification. So all of you, if you complete the course, you'll get a certificate that says, congratulations, you completed. And that simply means you've watched the lectures, you've turned in the homework. You've completed the class. To certify, however, Straight Line requires that you report out to us some real results that you've got in your company. So you've executed on a project that that delivers real value to your company. We don't put limits on here's how many dollars it's got to be worth, but we do require that you review it with us and make a presentation, preferably with along with somebody who is a company representative that you have. But in any event, it would be to me and probably one of my colleagues as well. It just gives us a chance to really vet it and to ask questions appropriately. I'll also say that I want everybody to do that. I am happy as a clam when somebody passes, so I want to give you ample opportunity to come to me beforehand and to ask, hey, what would you change about this? And I'll give you my opinion and tell you how you can alleviate the things that I see are issues. So that's for certification. Okay, that was probably deeper than everybody wanted to go, but shall we get into the introductions? I think I will. Okay, great. So I'm at a disadvantage. I haven't done the live session or the web sessions in a while, and when I'm working in front of somebody, I can watch everybody's body language and that. So I've got to remember to continue to ask more questions a little more directly. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the introductions a little bit, and I guess I'll start. And there's only a few of us, so I'm going to walk through. I think you know me at least from the brochure, and some of you know me besides that. Most of you do, in fact. I've been a Master Black Belt for a long time. I started my career at Raytheon. I should say my background is all over the map in terms of education. Started in music, then did physics and engineering, and then finally did statistics. When I got out, it was like, okay, now I did all this stuff. What should I do? I started at Raytheon, and Raytheon is kind of where I learned the beginnings of this. They had a big quality program. I migrated that to Corning, which is very much a manufacturing company, and then applied Six Sigma to other service industries, which was rare at that time. In around 2003, I did a lot of work with Cigna Healthcare in the Hartford area, and since then, I founded the Straight Line in 2003, and I've worked with lots and lots of clients from logistics and warehouse to manufacturing, a lot of healthcare and health from both the provider side, the doctors, as well as the insurer side. So that is, and I've done about 100,000 of these classes. So from yellow belt to black belt to even a master black belt group of about 15 statisticians, PhD statisticians at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which was an interesting, an interesting thing. Anyway, I won't get into that. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you and your projects a lot better. So as I kind of go through and ask you to introduce yourself, if you could just give a brief introduction of, kind of what you know about, what your name and position at the company, maybe how long you've been there, and your what your project is in Six Sigma. If you don't yet have one, you say you're looking for one, and what are some of the expectations that you have in the class? So why don't we start with Tammy? Can we start with you?
Yep, I sure can.
Great.
My name is Tammy Ellislag. I am the Director of Quality and Compliance for Solstice Benefits. We are a dental insurance company out of the south of Florida. and I've been with them for about 5 years now. And my project is hoping to be, we have an agent appointment process where we have to appoint different brokers within the company, and they're coming from all different directions. We have partnerships where their agents get appointed. We have our own brokers that get appointed, and it's coming from all directions, and the process is very chaotic right now. And then I also want to take a different application we have called Salesforce that our sales team uses and integrate that with the agent appointments. So I think that's what my project will be.
Okay, excellent. So we can talk a little bit about that. In 5 years, Tammy, that is about as long as anybody's been there, right?
Actually, no, there's quite a few longer than me. I think I'm probably about maybe 15th or so. So
okay.
Since it's a fairly new company, we were only started, I think, in '98 was our first year. So yeah, I'm about 15th, I think, on length of time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tammy.
Yep.
How about Steve?
So it's Olivier, right?
That's, oh yeah, Steve O.
Okay, I don't know if I don't know the Steve.
How do you pronounce it? Stephen Peabody, man.
So it's Steve Olivier, like Lawrence Olivier.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, excellent.
So I'm with TMC, Technical Manufacturing Corporation, which is a business unit in Emitech. I am my title is quality leader for the company. So basically, what I do is I'm in charge of the quality function. So everything, we're an ISO certified company, so I'm the steward of the quality system. Deal a lot with customer satisfaction issues, shop floor improvement, or even in the office function improvements. I also have reporting to me manufacturing engineers, and we have our eyes open for opportunities to improve manufacturing efficiencies. Currently, I don't have a project in mind, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of opportunities. And with this training, I hope I could try to instill some of that and find a project within the manufacturing function or even in the office environment to see how we can improve things. One thing I want to add, I've been with TMC for 10 years.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, thanks, Steve. So, yeah, and just to everybody, we'll be talking a little bit today about what constitutes a good project, what constitutes a tough project, and what constitutes a bad project for the paradigm. I'll just put it. It might be a good project, but it's a bad project for the Six Sigma paradigm. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. And this is something, by the way, that you should definitely reach out for. Okay? So Steve, feel free to definitely set up a one-on-one with me, and
Sure.
or we could do it, with the other folks who are in as well from Amitech. All right.
Sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Let me move on to Michael.
Yes, so I work at TNC, been here about 2 years, and I manage operational strategy and analytics. And I believe my project's going to be focused on improving cycle time within our processing function.
Okay. Cycle time. All right. So you also have some experience, I think, like Steve, in terms of making a lot of these improvements. Is that right?
Correct.
Excellent. So what are some things that you kind of hope to get out of this that you maybe haven't covered before?
Yeah, I mean, two main goals. One is improve the toolkit as far as what are actual strong methodologies to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're really trying to implement more of a process excellence, process management culture in our area. And this is just a building block in my mind.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. Regina, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'm not getting... your phone is showing up as grayed out, so that's why I asked.
Okay.
Great. How about you introduce yourself?
I'm Regina Buttimer. I actually report to Michael. I work at PNC Mortgage as well. been there a little over five years this go around. Have a project management background, but really interested in more process improvement and larger technology projects. So when the opportunity came, I took a position with Michael. Again, we'd be focusing on a project related to improving cycle time. And what do I expect to get out of this class? Among many things, learning the tools and techniques. Like Michael said, it's a building block. We're just starting.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And now you, I think like me, and basically most of the people in this class, but unlike Michael, are in the frozen north. Is that right? You're in Chicago today?
Yes, the Chicago suburbs.
Yeah. Well, don't feel too bad. A number of us are in, a few of us are in Keene, New Hampshire, which I'm guessing has been pretty cold lately. So.
We're happy to report it's above freezing today.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
Yes, above freezing here today as well.
Lovely. Okay.
Also, Florida is in a cold front as well, and we are only reaching 76 today. So.
Well, the world's smallest violin is playing for Michael today. All right. Well, thank you, Regina. Let's move on a little bit. And how about John? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi. I am at ProCTech. I've been with Amitech for about 8 years. I've only been here at this division, say, 3 months. I'm in finance. I'm a senior accountant. I have no process or quality background, but I hope to get a lot out of it and how to apply it and help others in the business apply it as well.
Great.
I have no project.
And you don't have a project yet. Okay, so again, this is something we should probably get on the phone for and talk it through. And by the way, we talked about certification. It definitely makes it a lot easier as you're going through this stuff. Well, you know, there's some good and there's some bad about having the project. Most of it's really good. The good thing is that you can think about, oh, how would this apply to this particular project? And so it makes it more real for you. The potential pitfall is you want to apply every tool to it. And, you know, we'll cover something later called multiple regression. Maybe a number of you have heard of it. Multiple regression is kind of a heavy lifting tool. And guess what? It doesn't apply to all projects. In fact, it probably only applies to 25%. So, you know, that's one of those things that you don't want to fall into the trap of saying, I must do this. So, but we should talk about, you know, what projects would make sense. And I'm really happy to hear that we're getting lots of people from we're getting people from lots of different areas. We have people from quality, we have project managers, now we've got finance folks. You know, a lot of this is really putting it all together so that we have a powerful story when we go ahead and do make those process improvements. Definitely really important to have the financials considered and put together well. So glad to have you on board, John. And last and certainly not least, Dan, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Dan Johnson. I have been at TMC ProCTech for about 3 years, but prior to that, 20-plus years of experience in both manufacturing and service companies. My current role is as Vice President and Controller. So in that light, I would oversee both the building that Steve Olivia works at in Peabody, Mass., as well as the facility we have in Keene, New Hampshire. You know, in terms of a project, Mark, I guess one of the things that we'll want to talk to you about is if we could take a bigger bite if the three of us work on the same project, or if we should have individual projects, but we can, you know, take that offline and, you know, I guess have a goal of having a project in mind by week 2.
Right.
You know, in terms of getting out of the class, you know, just a good review and learning of new tools that are out there. I think with the three of us, we can bring a process, a standard process, if you will, to how we approach improving the business at both locations.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds great. And yeah, I think that probably makes sense for us to have kind of the four of us get together in a phone call and kind of work out some ideas and go back to the woodshed if we need to, and come in second week and really have something that's at least relatively formulated so we can start to conceptualize it. Because, you know, a lot of the assignments as well are geared toward helping you get things done for the project. So, you know, the idea would be, geez, if you have a project, then some of these assignment things are, they're actually getting work done for you, which is
Right.
what we want. Okay, well, excellent. Thank you all for introducing yourselves to me and to each other. And so at this point, I think we'll move on to the second thing, which was really talking about some of the data files that were there. Now, was there anybody who didn't have a chance to download or who wasn't able to download any of the I think it was the templates, the tools, Excel statistics, and then it was the week 1 PDF? Were we all able to, was there anybody who wasn't able to do that? Okay. Great. So there's a few other things that you'll notice that are up here. There's data that we're going to deal with pretty soon. So data for weeks 1 through 4, data for weeks 5 through 8. There is, you can add these to the tools, but I put in a few things that I found last time we covered this that people sometimes liked it, sometimes didn't. So here are the things that I put in there. One, they're all basically project management type of things. Just to show you very quickly, there's a DMAIC end of project summary, and I'm just going to show you that right now. It's just a PowerPoint that says, hey, look, if you want to build a PowerPoint, here's a very high-level straw template for it. Here's my project report. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but here's the project report. Here's my team. Here's what happened to define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And here are my results: financials, operational, customer impact. And here's an appendix of any other things I want to put in to support that story. So that's something that you can use to put together. If you have your own companies, that's fine. I don't object to that at all. But it's good to have something like that. So that's something that is available to you. Another thing that's available to you that a lot of people really like is something called a DMAIC snapshot, or a project snapshot. And this is a one-pager that essentially has some other things on it. It doesn't have a Gantt chart for those project managers who are in love with Gantt charts. By the way, I'm in love with them too, so it's a bummer for me. But it does at least have what are some main deliverables that I need to have on here and complete. When am I going to estimate that they're done? And how much do I have done? On the left-hand side, what are the success metrics that I've got? Do I have any secondary metrics? Who's the project? Or what's the name, the owners? What's today's date? What's the start date? So I can see how long it's been going. Recent accomplishments, next steps. So again, nothing super deep, but something that if you if you want a template for something like this, it's helpful to have in a 15-minute meeting. You can throw this up and people can see where you are. Okay. All right. And that was a list of you guys. All right. Let's see. Let me take I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour through the templates that are available that are in here. So just to show you, if you had a chance to download these and unzip them, you'll see lots of things. I've just organized them by alphabetical order, but lots of things that are in here, some of which you maybe will recognize, some not. Here's a Gantt chart. May not be a very good one, but here it is. If you don't have project, or if you don't have something that's there, here's a Gantt chart. This was not the one I wanted to show, but there it is. Here's a simpler one. There's a simpler one, and this puts in essentially what should happen in define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Little pictorial. There's a prioritization matrix. There's something called an FMEA. So there's lots of things that are in here that we can use as we go through the class. And I'll let you know, whoops, That wasn't supposed to happen. Go back to where I was. In the tools, we have things that are a little bit more sort of job aid oriented. So there are some conceptual helpers, like the analysis grid. It'll tell you sort of what tool to use when. There's something called a DMAIC navigator, which I will cover later today. There's a tool for helping you with design of experiments called DOE Helper. There's a process simulator that's in here, and there's a Monte Carlo simulator that's in here. So those are sort of job aids that will help you with some of the heavy lifting analyses that we'll get into near the end. And finally, there's something called Excel Stats. So if hopefully you've all downloaded this, what I'm going to go through now is sort of a basic tutorial of Excel Stats, and this should probably take about 10 minutes. So if you haven't yet, if you've downloaded it, but if you haven't yet downloaded it, please try to do so from the Dropbox link that I sent. Hopefully you've got it downloaded. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go kind of soup to nuts putting this together. Now I recommend that you put it on the desktop and work from there. But the first thing to do is we're going to extract all of this. This is fairly important because Excel does unpredictable things when you don't unzip it. So it's make sure you unzip it. The second thing we'll do, once you've got it unzipped, is go ahead and open up that file. And like Windows, gives you an additional folder. Lovely. Okay. What we'll want to do is we'll want to go to, and I've got this organized alphabetically. You'll see there's lots of different files here. Now these are the files that are actually called by Excel Statistics to actually run and open up. But we'll want to go to the very bottom, and you'll want to go to this Excel Statistics XLAM. And if you right-click on that, we'll create a shortcut. And let's see where that shortcut got put. Let me try that again. Oh, there it is right there. I don't know why it didn't show up. And I'm just going to move that shortcut to the desktop. I move it to the desktop just for convenience, and at this point then I can forget all about Excel Statistics, and we'll be all set. All I need to do is double click on this, and it'll open up what I want. Okay, so let's go ahead and double click on that if you already have the shortcut, and you should get something that shows this. Now I have Excel 2013. If you don't have Excel 2013, you may get a slightly different message, but you'll want to enable the macros. And guarantee this is virus free, malware free. So if you go on the top here, I guess I'll ask the question, if anybody needs a little bit more time to unpack that, just let me know, please.
Would you like us to do it right now as you doing it?
I think that if you can, that'd be very helpful to you, because we're going to do a couple of things.
Give us a minute. Need a minute.
Okay. All right. So again, let me just kind of go through that very quickly. Unzip the zipped file, and then go into the file that you just unzipped, the folder. Go to the very bottom, and you'll want to get the Excel Statistics.xlam file. And don't drag that out, but make a shortcut to it and put that shortcut on the desktop. You can make a shortcut by right-clicking, Create Shortcut. If you have a Mac, I don't know how you do that. You right-click with your one button. I know it can be done. I just don't know how. Okay. Then double-click on the, go ahead and double-click on the shortcut, and it should bring you to a file, basically to a blank Excel file that now has, that now has on its menu a tab that says Excel Statistics. Now, essentially what's going to happen is Excel Statistics has all of these functions that you can run by clicking on them,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll show you how that works. So let me show you how that works very quickly, and we'll just go ahead and do this. So I'm going to take one of our data files from the data for week 1. I'm going to unzip that as well. And it doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go into, how about, I want to pick something that's fairly simple. How about invoices? That sounds good. Let's see what's in that. Okay. So this is maybe not the most exciting of files, but these are times in days in sort of accounts, days that an invoice has been sitting in accounts payable. Okay? So they're kind of like collection times. So Excel Statistics is very, let me show you how you analyze some of this data. And as we go through it in the future, and you're going to see this a lot. Oops, not that. You're going to see this a lot. You're going to see me draw a box, and you're going to see me write up a variable and ask, this is called collection or collect, and it's really times. And ask the question, is it numbers variable or is it category variable? In this case, it's a number variable. It's a num. So because of this, I'm going to think about how I analyze this based on the context right here. I have one variable and it's a number. Therefore, I can come up to Excel Stats and I can select the data and then click on one num. Now this sounds too good to be true, and it is, but at least right now you see the structure. So when I click on one num, now Excel Stats will come up with all sorts of analyses for me to be looking at. Pretty cool, huh? So it gives me a picture of the histogram. We can see, for example, that this is not a bell curve, for those of you who are knowledgeable about bell curves. We get some statistics on, is there a question somebody had? Okay. We get some statistics on like how many data points there were, what the mean is, what the median is. There it is right there. There's the median. We get to even know the kurtosis if you are really interested in that. And so forth. And we'll find that we can even run all sorts of things like later we'll find out what hypothesis tests are, and we'll go ahead and we can run those sorts of things from that. So it's really pretty cool. We can even do sample size from it, which is pretty neat. So it's a.
So Mark, is this all built in the utility?
This is all in Excel Statistics. It's all in it. So
can it be modified by the user?
Can it be
in terms of what it outputs?
The template right here is it can be modified to a large degree. For example, if you wanted 20 classes on your histogram instead of 10, you could do that. Or if you wanted to go from 1 to 150, you could do that. But it's pretty robust in terms of what it includes. So we'll talk and what you can do with it. So to show the values or to not show the values, to do a percentage histogram instead of a regular. We generally aren't going to add other analyses to it.
Okay.
All right? Great. And we'll also find that there are some that fit in, and then there are some that don't, that aren't related to one num, two num, whatever. And so those are things that are right here. And we'll go through all of those as well. We won't go through it today. the intent today was just to kind of show you how this thing works and to give you a small tutorial on it. Small is the watchword. I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to make sure that I don't save things when I close Excel statistics. We'll be able to record and do snapshots of them. Actually, let me show you that. That's pretty useful, so I'll show you that. So suppose I want to take a picture of this. One of the things I can do is simply select, how about select this as well? I'll select all of that, and if I go to record, hopefully that worked. Looks like it did. Yes, it did. It goes and it puts it in your original data file, takes a picture of that. So I can cut and I can paste that into a PowerPoint or anything, resize it if I want, annotate it. But now this is a picture, and so if I change data or anything like that, nothing's going to change on this one in the background. So it's a good way to keep a record of your analyses that you're doing. Okay, let's do one more, and let's close down this. Let's close down, let's see, let's open up one that's maybe a little more complicated. Maybe one that's pretty, actually pretty simple. Gas mileage. Here I've got the gas mileage that I get, and believe it or not, there have been studies. I know I'm going to hear groans on this, but there have been studies that show that women actually get better gas mileage than men. And this is a data file that maybe it shows that, maybe it doesn't. Let's see if we can analyze this. In this case, we've got not collection times, but oops. But we've got, I'm erasing this there. Oh, we got most of that. Here we've got an input and an output. We've got gas mileage. I'll put that as an output, and I want to see gender as a predictor. Does gender actually predict what gas mileage, or is it a driver of gas mileage? Pardon the pun. So let's check that out. Here I've got one num and one cat. So I can go here and I can click on one num, one cat, and it brings up a whole different palette of analyses for me. So it has separate frequency charts. You can see it has a table of these statistics for males and females and overall. It has a nice little mean plot that shows if there's a statistical difference from this. And it has some other things. This we'll find out is a box plot, and it'll even do statistical tests for us, which is helpful. So lots of different things that this thing can do, and we'll explore a lot of this as we go through. So the thing I like about it is it's very visual, and to a certain extent the analysis, not the analysis, but the tools are already kind of run for you, so you can focus your time on the context and on the questions that you want to ask, rather than how do I get the computer program to do this, which is helpful. Having said that, there are some quirks in it because it's done in Excel. All right, well, we'll explore more on how to do that in the near future, but I think, at least in terms of what I wanted to cover there, I think that's about it. We covered Excel statistics, we covered the tools and templates, and we covered some of the new files with the DMAIC Navigator still sitting there for us to cover at the end of today. So before I move on, what questions do you have? Okay, no questions. So that's either good or bad. So I think let's get into, the first day is always a little bit like this. Let's get into the slides. So now we're going to kind of go to the binder deck, and let's open up for week 1. And let's open up week 1, and let's cover the. We're going to cover the start on the slides right here. So let's. I guess before we start, let's just talk about what the outline is going to look like in this course. We already talked a lot about this, so I'm not going to talk about the course materials. So let's go to slide 5 and just talk a little bit about the required activities. It says attend the weekly coaching session, but we already talked about that. Key is to be able to complete and turn in the assignments on time if you can. If you can't, please do contact me about what about that. And do your best to attend and participate in weekly lectures. It helps if people are asking questions and participating. Now, here's the framework that you're going to see as we go through this. We're going to cover essentially what I consider to be essential soft skills. That is communication, project management. I guess could be a hard or soft skill, but we're going to put it in there. And also behavioral techniques. So you've also got a book coming called Bringing Out the Best in People, and it's not a touchy-feely book. It's about I think you'll enjoy it, but it's about some behavioral techniques that we'll talk about throughout the course, and it's part of the reading that's going to be in your homework assignment. So you'll probably get that on either tomorrow or Thursday. You'll receive that. Michael's the only one who wanted it via Kindle, and he's got it. But the others, you'll get it very, very soon. We'll also talk about core Lean Six Sigma techniques. These are going to be the Lean tools, the team tools, the measurement and analytical methods, and the very basic financial tools. We'll also talk about leading and managing change. So this would be obtaining and prioritizing the voice of customer, choosing good projects, and managing those projects. So those are kind of what we're going to cover, and we're going to try our best to cover it in all sorts of examples that we can. Operations, customer service, human resources, development, procurement, production, information technology, sales, marketing, finance, but also you should be able to apply it to your core processes, right? If you're a manufacturer of of machinery, say lens making equipment, then you should be able to apply it to those core processes as well as IT or as well as finance. If you're a healthcare company, you should be able to apply it to your call center and your service center as well as your ancillary services and so forth. All right. And if you're a mortgage, company, you should be able to apply it everywhere as well. Okay, the assumption is that you have some working knowledge of something in quality. I think most of you do. I think all of you do, in fact, from talking with you. The second thing is, I want to emphasize this third bullet. You got to be familiar with Microsoft Office. If you aren't, please let me know and we can work on that. And if you have a computer, it doesn't have to be a laptop with the above, with Microsoft Office installed, I think we're golden. Okay, so if we're ready for the prerequisites, let's stop all that yakking and let me talk about sort of a program overview, and do this introduction. How Lean Six Sigma works, the background, introduction to the RAC, and the strategic development that we're going to do today. So, before we do, I want to just kind of throw it back to you and ask the question, what is it that you've heard, what are some things that you've heard about Lean Six Sigma, or know about, Lean Six Sigma. It could be Lean, it could be Six Sigma, or it could be Lean Six Sigma. What are some things that you've heard about Lean Six Sigma, or know about?
It removes variability.
It removes variability. Excellent. Okay. By the way, it could be good, bad. That's a great one. Okay, I just want to say that's a great one. But to put this back,
they are both tools.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They are both tools, and being tools, it's important to know how to use them.
They're both tools. Okay. I think I'll leave that. I think I'll leave that there, and it's important to know how to use those tools. Okay, great. What else have you heard about it? And I want to make sure that we all know that I'm looking for whatever you know, right? So if you've heard some bad things about Six Sigma, it's important to kind of talk about those things, right? That's okay. So what are some other things that you've heard about Lean Six Sigma, or that you know about it?
It simplifies processes.
Aha, it simplifies processes, okay? So maybe we can say it uses, going back to what I think it was Olivier said, it uses process as an enabler, right? So process is the enabler toward fixing things, right? Who is the enabler? Is one of the enablers. Okay. Why do we do these things? Why do we work on Six Sigma projects? Who does it benefit?
It's to improve efficiency, which ultimately improves the cost position.
Efficiency. Okay. Leading to cost position is what I think I heard you say.
Right.
Okay. Great. How about this? I want to throw this out here. Have you guys heard that it's too hard? Six Sigma's too hard to do.
Well, I've heard people say they don't have time.
We don't have time. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I think this is a great list, and we can. I'm going to add a couple to these. You know what? I think I'm going to wait until the time comes, but we'll remember some of these things, and we'll remember some of these things as we're going through sort of the book answer to this. But I wanted to kind of get a flavor for what you guys already knew or heard or thought about it. Before we went on. So let's kind of go through this, and I'm going to give you some of the book answers that are in here. So here's basically what it's about. Okay, in terms of the organization of the program, if you're going to run a Lean Six Sigma program, you need to think about a number of different toolkits, or maybe disciplines is a good word to say. So one is called Lean, the discipline of Lean. Another is called the discipline of Six Sigma. Another key discipline that we're going to draw knowledge from and resources from is project management. And this whole concept of team management / change management is also in there. Now, all of these things work together to really facilitate continuous business results, right? So this is kind of the picture that we want. We've got Lean methodologies, we've got Six Sigma methodologies, and we've got project and team management that kind of lead us to some coordinated effort to give us a successful result. Now, here's the first structure that I want to make sure that we all get. Because of the background which we'll talk about, in the old days in quality, when I started, which was really late 80s and through the 90s, TQM was very prevalent, and TQM was not so much project-based, it was more culture-based. The idea is you take quality consultants, and we would go in and we would recommend things to people. The problem was those changes were not usually made. So a small company named GE discovered that it was very, very helpful, and they didn't discover it on their own, but it was very, very helpful to have definite points where you could kind of punctuate, hey, this is a definite improvement that we've made, and so it kind of have a step function to all these. And so they introduced something called DMAIC, which stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. More on that later, to give project results, to give business results. Now the idea is to get a number of these things happening. Once they're successful, you can start to embed them more into the culture. You can start to embed more of the Six Sigma thinking, which we'll also talk about later today, into the culture. And that's just what I've got right here. That's the picture that this is supposed to show, is that you can embed it into the culture. Okay, so just very quickly, at a glance, what is Lean, what is Six Sigma, what is project management, what is team management. So just very quickly, I'll just throw this out here. For those of you who have some background in Lean, Lean is basically all about, when I learned Lean, people learned about it as, the phrase that I was supposed to remember was, it's about time. In other words, it's all about reducing the time between the customer order and the time of customer delivery. And anything that stops or holds up that has, we seek to eliminate the things that are not value added for the customer or for our business. So Lean, the emphasis is on process flow, and it's about eliminating the bad things rather than improving the good things. Hopefully that makes some sense. Lean tends to be more of a process flow. Lean solutions, when we get into those later in the course, we'll find that those Lean solutions kind of are geared toward how can I make my process flow better by using certain ideas like reducing batch size or load balancing, things like that. Doing quick turnovers or changeovers. So that's what Lean is kind of about, and we'll give an example of it in just a minute. Six Sigma, on the other hand, tends to be more focused on eliminating very specific defects. It tends, now the tools that we use for each of those overlap. Take, for example, one of the most famous tools, a process map, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, if not all. That works as a Lean tool or a Six Sigma tool, so we don't bother making the distinction. However, a Pareto chart usually is viewed as a Six Sigma tool because it's geared towards showing people and communicating what are our top defects. So the idea with Six Sigma is we're going to use often statistical tools to get a deeper understanding of a real specific point in the process and then eliminate those defects or eliminate the variation that's occurring at that. So one way that you can think about that, let me draw a picture of this, is if you have a process, and let's just very generically draw a four-step process. This is about as simple as you can get, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, this is a gross oversimplification of this, but it kind of shows you a little bit about what's going on. And if this is the time, if this is the end-to-end time, here's my customer, right? There's the order. There's my order, right? He's barking an order, and there's the package that is received. Let's put a bow on it, right? Okay, there's my happy customer at the end. This is the time that it takes. Lean is about this whole process and finding the flow so that we can shorten that time, right, between the customer. We want to shorten that time. Whereas Six Sigma is about essentially finding the right place where all the defects are being produced, and I'm using these red dots as sort of the measles, where the defects are happening, and zooming in on that and creating a situation where you have far, whoops, sorry about that, where you have far fewer defects. Okay, so you go to a situation where you've got lots of red dots to where you've only got 2 red dots, right, and this is our after. That's essentially the difference conceptually between these. Now again, there are exceptions, and there's a gross oversimplification. I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off on a question? Okay.
No. No.
Okay. Okay, that's great. I just want to make sure. Okay. Now, I think most of us understand basically what project management is, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I think we'll just move on. And team and change management. Suffice it to say that project management are really tools for planning and organizing, as the emphasis is on scheduling and meeting deliverables. We have a certain amount of that in DMAIC. We're not going to emphasize teaching it, although there will be some in this course that we'll just, I think, nod our heads to and say, yep, we get those things. The hard thing about project management is really doing it. It's a tough job and often a thankless job. And then finally, team and change management. So we will talk particularly throughout the course in some of your readings about what are some things that can derail teams, what are some best practices with teams, and what are some best practices with, change management's a big buzzword these days, but how we're really being change agents here. We're trying to change the way things are to make things better. A lot of our process changes are going to affect people, and we need to think about, you know, how we integrate those things in. When the time comes, I really hope that we'll have a nice, robust discussion on that. Okay, and we already talked about what is lean, so I'm going to move on past that. Here's an example of how lean might conceptually work. A shipping company, think about transatlantic shipping company. They might focus on reducing delays in their unloading, or other non-value-added steps, non-value-added to the customer now, rather than trying to improve their core competency, which is actually the shipping process. So instead of saying, if you think about the cycle time here, and these chevrons mean basically the longer that a chevron is, the longer amount of time. In this case, they focused on, instead of making their shipping, which was their core thing that they did, instead of reducing that, maybe we should focus on working on, you know, shortening up the load times or the unloading times, and that's what is conceptually showing here, shortening up the time by eliminating non-value added. Whereas Six Sigma, here's an example of Six Sigma company, or a Six Sigma example. Here we've got an insurance company, or a company that processes insurance claims. They may have too many incorrect claims. Now, I don't want to pick on the insurance companies because we have somebody in here, but I think most of us have experienced that wrong claim, or something like that. So these wrong claims can lead to rework, customer complaints, and lots more. Six Sigma could be used to reduce those defects if we call a defect an incorrect claim by using the DMAIC process. Again, the idea would be to say, if this is the, let me see if I can find this again. If this is our claims process, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever that might be, find where we're screwing up the most in the claims process and work to eliminate those screw-ups, right? Not all of these things are our fault necessarily, but again, that's not the point that we're trying to do is not to try and lay blame to everybody. It's to try and make a better situation. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And we talked about project management and that. Now, I want to point this out to you on slide 23. I do have a note that says Lean and Six Sigma are used together. I think generally today everybody just accepts that they can be used together. That's great. In the old days, that didn't happen. So I'm just mentioning that in passing. And if you run into, generally speaking, it's the Lean guys or gals that will say they don't go together. If you happen to run into somebody, you can think about that. Six Sigma can just make a lot of these lean processes a lot better. Okay, and you'll get this exercise in your assignment, but this is one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do. Give an example of how lean an everyday example, how lean might be applied, and give a work example of how lean might be applied. Let's talk a little bit about maybe what might be an everyday life example and describe how lean might be applied to that. So one of the examples I might have in my life is I've got children. So one of the problems I have is the kids don't get to the bus on time in the morning. So how could I apply this sort of methodology to think about that? I can think about the process by which my children get ready for and onto the bus, right, in terms of laying out their clothes or not laying out their clothes, putting on their clothes, brushing their teeth, eating breakfast. I guess the other way around. Putting on, nowadays, their winter clothes and getting out to the bus, gathering their homework, so forth. I can think about that. I could think about eliminating non-value-added stuff like watching YouTube videos in the morning, which at least one of my children likes to do. Maybe we can eliminate that. Or taking too much time laying out their clothes, so maybe get them to lay out their clothes in the night before. I might be able to apply Six Sigma to that same process by eliminating defects. Maybe a number of times it's because they didn't have their homework put away into their backpack. Well, again, we can make sure that we can find ways to to eliminate that using maybe behavioral techniques. Project management, I might be able to look at, say I want this solved in a couple of weeks, and think about what are the different things I need to look into during those weeks and who needs to be able to do various things. And same thing with change management. We might say, I might create a chart. I actually don't do this. I don't subject my family to all of these things, but I could, I suppose. We could create a chart that makes everything visible. Hey, did I put my clothes? Do I have my clothes out? And things like that. And I could also do the change management. I could a friend of mine uses a phrase. I could eat my own dog food. I could put my own name on the chart and lay my own clothes out that I'm going to wear the next day as well. So that might go a long way into helping the change management process. All right, well, that was pretty quick, and I just kind of made that up on the spot. But what might be an example? You don't have to give the whole example, but where else might you be able to apply this in everyday life? What might be another example? Can somebody give me an example?
As you were talking, I was thinking about the whole process of grocery shopping.
Oh.
How do you avoid multiple trips to a grocery store, for example? That's all time that you added to your life, and maybe you don't have that extra time.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to let us sit on the where and work might we apply it for just a minute, but we'll move on, keeping in mind that those are the 4 disciplines that we're going to cover. So Lean, Six Sigma, Project Management, and Team Management are the ones that all go together to really make this happen. You'll also notice that the structure of this material has a number of sections where I'm asking you questions. These are questions that in your homework I'm going to go through and ask you to fill out, but it's really important for you to internalize what you think are the key takeaways in these sections that we cover, whether we cover them in a session or whether we don't. What are the actions or what are the questions that you can ask and how you can support business improvement. Okay. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to talk into maybe more some of the nitty-gritty to how Six Sigma works. All right? And so basically what we want to talk about here is the, whoops, not that, Mark. What I want to talk about here is the principles. These are really the principles of Six Sigma, okay? And then we'll talk about the structure in just a moment. Doing a quick time check on this. All right. Okay, so why don't you read these? These are sort of 2 very, very high-level principles that I want you to read these quotes over and just to think about them for just a second. So take 15, 30 seconds to read them over. One is from about 1,000 years ago, and one is from about 200 years ago. I'm sure you can figure out which is which. Okay, so one of the things I'll mention, I won't bother asking, but you can see that these are 2 sides of what I would say is the same coin, and this is the mind. This I think these exemplify some of the mindset that you have to have when you're going through and becoming a Six Sigma black belt. The first is to, just like the I think it was as Steve said. In one of them, he said, well, that's not the way we do it. You're going to encounter people who say things like that, right? So the first is, the foolish reject what they see, not what they think. So we all know that there's lots of people who go through life saying, here's what I think, and there's no evidence in the world is going to sway them from that. Or there may be parts of you that you have in your life that you do that with. Business is one of those places where you want to definitely not do that. What you see is what you want to start to believe rather than what you feel in your gut. Okay? So that's the first thing that you've got to start to get to. In business, the usual phrase that we talk about is data-based decisions, right? That's one of the phrases that we use, or fact-based decisions. We want to act on facts rather than what's in our gut. The second is another huge mountain that as a black belt you're going to have to surmount, and that is dealing with the things that people know are true, but they actually aren't. And the reason why you have to get through that is because those are the places that really show the places. Those are the huge places where you can make giant strides, where everybody knows that things are right, but they're not. And you'll find those all the time. Now I'm going to try something here, and you're going to have to tell me if you can hear it or not. I'm going off of my headphones for just a moment, and I want to exemplify that. This is something. This is something that is maybe a little bit too current to vent, but hopefully you'll enjoy this. So, So I don't know how many of you watched the QVC channel. I don't, but I was turned on to this video. This is actually a famous designer, Mizrahi. I can't remember his first name, Isaac or Itzhak or something like that. And they're talking about something that I think will be kind of interesting to us and funny. So they're talking about these shirts or sweaters, but that's the background. So I'm just going to, just a moment to make sure that you can hear everything. Can you still hear everything from me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this reasonably well. Okay, let's give it a whirl.
Yes, I just squinted at it. From the moon, looking back at the planet moon. From the planet moon. Isn't the moon a star? No, the moon is a planet, darling. The sun is a star. Is the moon really a planet? The moon is a planet. Don't look at me like that. The sun is a star. Is the sun not a star? I don't know what the sun is. The sun is a star, isn't it? The sun is a star. The moon is not a planet. I knew it! You were trying to take me down that road. Wait, the moon is not a planet. Chunky, if you're listening to me, you have to Google the moon. Someone, I can guarantee you someone's Googling right now. The moon is such a planet. I can't even stand it. The moon is not a planet. What else is it if it's not a planet? It is not. I believe it's a star or something. It is not a moon. It's a moon. Didn't you do that thing in grade school where you had to name the planets, and there was Uranus, and there was Saturn, and the one with the rings, and and then the Earth, and with the moon is never in there, dude. It's not a planet. All right, here, look. This is key lime. I don't know. I feel like sometimes, though I am educated, I exposed during the show. Come on, it's a planet. That this blonde of mine could be real. Okay. The moon is what? A natural satellite. But things live on it. That means it's a planet. I don't know. Is that what Google said? I don't know what it says. No, I don't like that at all. I don't even know what that means. I do. I use Google all the time. I feel bad. I feel bad for Yahoo because they're really good too. I just don't use them. Well, okay, listen.
Okay. Well, pretty unbelievable conversation, I think. But I think it exemplifies. Anyway, could you guys hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you think about that?
I think it's a good thing he designs clothes.
I think so too. Did we hear somebody who definitely knew something that wasn't true?
Yeah.
I think we did, right? I mean, he was so adamant that the moon was a planet. I mean, it's funny and all. It is funny that they didn't. Here are two people who were clueless. I mean, one person is saying that it's the planet moon, and no, it's not. She was a little bit curious, but then it's also interesting that at the end of it all, she was not at all interested in the answer, right? They got an answer. It was a technical answer for them, and it didn't make a difference, right? So the first thing is, I think, to think about in the context that we had. I'm going to hopefully get quickly back to this. In the context that we had, which was these quotes, you know, the clothes designer Mizrahi, right? He was all over this one. He knew for sure that the moon was a planet, and guess what? It wasn't. And on the other hand, when they did find the answer, they weren't able to use that in an effective way because they didn't know what it meant. So as we go through this, let's keep in mind that it's all those things that come to bear, and communicating with people in a way that they're going to understand what the answers are that you're giving is a huge thing as well. All right. Well, hopefully that was a little bit of fun, but we'll move on from that. I just want to make sure that I am in the right place. Okay. So so let's talk a little bit about what the principles are of Six Sigma. So I'm going to pass that one. This is an interesting quote as well, but we're going to use past that, and we've seen those. So let's talk about what are some of the key aspects of Six Sigma. From very high level, and we talked a little bit about this, Six Sigma is about a lot of these different things. One, we talk about efficiency and all that kind of stuff, but number one, it's about creating value for your customers and for the business, right? So let's not ever forget about that. Six Sigma is about creating value. It's not about fixing processes. Fixing processes is a means to an end, okay? The second thing is it's about managing and using data and fact-driven voice of the customer, right? So we're using data and facts to really drive which decisions that we make. Third thing to think about is it's really about that search for cause and effect relationships. We don't want to know just that something happens. We want to know why it happens. If we can know why it happens, to a certain extent, right? We don't have to get down to the atomic level or the physics level of understanding why something works that way. However, it definitely is helpful if we understand why something happens, not just that something occurs. It is about minimizing waste and increasing quality simultaneously, so as well as efficiencies and effectiveness. And finally, it's really about fostering team collaboration and learning. So it really is a team. It's a team. Six Sigma is a team effort. It's a team sport, and it's about learning and getting better over time, right? You don't want to be doing the same projects 2 years down the line that you started in year one. To a certain extent, you might want to have some maintenance on those projects, but the idea is to put them in motion and to have a good control plan and then to keep doing that. Now, Lean Six Sigma uses business processes and measurement analytics. Okay, so it uses measurement and, that's an and, terrible. So it's processes and analytics to get the results. That's really what it's all about, okay? All right. So let's talk just a little bit about process thinking. And in fact, before we do this, I'm going to go back to my whiteboard and just ask you high level, what's a process? What is a process? So, floor is open. What's a process? What are some aspects of a process that you would put into that definition? Anybody?
Well, I think of a process as of having an input and output.
Great. So a process has to have an input and output? Okay.
I'd say it creates value.
Creates value. Great. Creates value. And by the way, a lot of people kind of talk about outputs as deliverables that create value.
Right.
Great.
Would it be measurable?
Yep. Measurable. Great. Anything else?
It manipulates the input.
Aha, it manipulates the input. And that gets to what Dan said about creating value, right? It manipulates,
right, that's what we thought.
Transforms.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Adds value is another phrase that people like to use. Great. Great. The input. Adds value to, I guess, to be grammatically correct. Okay. One other thing we definitely need to put, or maybe a couple other things we need to have. It definitely has to have a start and a stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to know when a process begins and a process ends. One way that I like to think about it is that it's a series of steps or activities that has a start and a stop, where we take some input or a combination of inputs and create value in them to create a deliverable that's more valuable. So that's maybe one way of thinking about what a process is. I love that idea of transforming things. Now, one thing also that some people use, instead of saying inputs, outputs, they might say it's activities. There's a start, there's a stop, there's activities, and there's some sort of entity flowing through those. Now, when they say entity, we're talking about human beings or products, right? They're the inputs. They're really the inputs. Or it could be phone calls. There's a phone call that's going through a process. All those things. So I think we get it enough. But I just want to kind of put the two different ways that we think of this as that we're going to think of this as black belts. The first way, whoops, let me go back to here. The first way is through this process box. We've got starts, we've got stops, we've got inputs, we've got outputs, and we're creating value through a process. Okay? It's transforming these inputs to one or more of these outputs. I've got it conceptually very simple, where it's just one. Another way to think about it is mathematically, and we will think about it mathematically. And here's the notation that we're going to use. And some people talk about this. Y equals f of x. And I don't usually ask people this, but it's worth pondering, I think, why, here's the depiction. In our process box, our y is there. It's what we get. Our inputs, that's what we put into the process, what we need to do it, right? And our function, what we do. So the results are what we put into it and what we do with it, right? But it is interesting, I think, that, let me erase that actually. There we go. Excellent. It is interesting, I think, and you can ponder it, why mathematicians like to put things on the left-hand side and everybody else wants to put things on the right-hand side. Everything else, it goes, results go from left to right, but for a mathematician, they go from right to left. And I don't know if that was, I have no idea why that is. Actually, I do have an idea, but I don't think it's worth talking about. But you can ponder that if you want to later. Okay, but those are the two notations that we're going to use. You're going to see me draw this process box a lot. I think it's really a key to helping you frame your thinking as we go on. Okay. Great. So now let's see. Let's move ahead to, and these are just kind of pictures of some other things we can talk about. Let's talk about a little bit about why we're going to do it and what the challenges are. So I think actually before we get into sort of mom and apple pie, what we'll find out is that, or what I want to tell you, I've been using what we'll find out too much because this is the first day. But one of the things that we'll think about is, Six Sigma essentially brings discipline and questioning into your business in a structured and disciplined way, in a scientific way. And in fact, the application is really like the scientific method to business. as we'll find out later, DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. That's very much like the scientific method of having a hypothesis, going out collecting data to see if that hypothesis, and then testing that data to see if the hypothesis is true or not, and then acting accordingly based on whether on what you find is true. I think most businesses can use a lot of that, and particularly, I guess, I'll ask the rhetorical question. I won't wait for the answer because I know the answer. Whenever you go to any company and you ask them, do you firefight too much or too little? The answer is always, we firefight all the time. We're firefighting too much. Why is that? Well, a lot of it is because we're acting on things that we think we know, but we don't. And if we can stop doing the things that are not adding value and start doing the things that are not that we're not adding value right now but could add value, we would be in a far better place. So Six Sigma is really about giving you some tools to be able to do that effectively. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Although I'm open to any of your rejections of science. I'm open to listening to them. However, I think what I wanted to do was maybe ask you, what do you think are going to be some of the challenges of applying this scientific method to your business? What are going to be some of the challenges of running a Six Sigma project? Change management, team management, making improvements, doing it scientifically. What are some of the challenges you're going to face?
I definitely think change management, Mark, is going to be big because a lot of folks are stuck on we've always done it that way.
Right.
That was my thought too.
Yeah. Always done it that way. Yeah. So while we're on it, so what are some other things? Let me share with you some of the other phrases that I've collected over the years. I'll share some of them. How about this one? How about, we tried it already? Have you ever heard that one? Okay.
Yeah.
How about this one? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just another program.
What's that?
It's just another program.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Just another program. We've had this, just like the rah-rah that we had last week, or last month, or last year. Yep. Definitely are going to run into that. Best way to get through that is to show very demonstrable results that nobody can argue with. That's the best way to do it. Not always easy to do it that way, but that's the best way to do it. How about this one? How about, we're different? I know this stuff works at GE, but we're different. We're not manufacturing, or we're manufacturing, but we're a different sort of manufacturing. How about? Go ahead.
Would one of the challenges be something like, I know I'm going to need a lot of IT resources to make my project happen,
Yeah.
and I know that they're going to be tied up and I'm going to get, heck no, we don't have time for that, and where can they fit me in, and that kind of stuff.
Right. Don't have time. Back when I was at Corning, I loved that one, right? Because we would talk about that, and somebody would say, we don't have time to do it the right way. I mean, essentially, we'd often hear that. But IT resources is definitely a big one. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, so strongly into consideration. So first of all the process changes that you make, there are going to be, if you're creative about thinking about what you can do, you're going to find lots of changes that will not directly affect IT or will not affect them in a major way. Guarantee it. That's number one. I just want to throw that out there. So IT fixes are not the only fixes. Number two, if you do foresee IT being a key linchpin in the improvement, it's best to start having the conversations with what we're later going to call our champion early on. So at your company, that's alerting Carlos to, hey, we need to know, or we see some IT changes on the horizon for this. Let's make sure it gets into the next cycle. I don't know if you guys do quarterly or monthly cycles or biannually, but whatever that change cycle is. So that's a big one to bring in.
Yeah, it is, but and he's already aware of it. But I think what I'm going to run up against is, okay, so the answer I'm going to get is, so you want me to pull IT off of something that brings us in money, or do you want to, you know, that kind of thing is what I'll get.
Yes,
so
right.
maybe not from Carlos, but from like the owner and stuff like that. So
right.
We'll see.
Right. So part and parcel with that one is, when you make changes, be very selective of which changes that you make. Don't try and change too many things. Change the things that really matter, and then nail them 100%, or as close to 100% as you can. I once did a project at a not too long ago at a for-profit university, and was a great project. We were trying to reduce the time that it took for somebody to get their financial aid package, which was huge for them. Huge for the company, huge for the customers, perfect project. Lots of improvements that could be made. And in the end, they decided to try to enact like 17 or 18 changes. And guess what? They didn't package it well, they didn't communicate it well, and change management just killed them. Because they got to the point where it was like people didn't want to have all these different things coming at them. Many of them were IT. At a similar company, but not the same one, I once did an audit of their Six Sigma program, and it was interesting. I started out by looking at their existing projects and the ones that were complete. And if I remember, DMAIC is define, measure, improve, control. I looked at an inventory, and then there was complete over here, and I looked at them, and I bucketed them, tried to see how many that were done. I built one of the first visuals I put together was a bar chart that showed how many were in D, how many were in M, how many were in A, how many were in I, and how many were in C of their existing ones. And it literally looked like this. It looked even worse, in fact. And so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this and say, geez, you've got a lot of these and improve. And so, you know, you ask the question, why? Well, why is that? Well, it turned out that they had all IT changes that they were asking for. And these were called system design changes, and they were called minor system design changes. So I did a little more investigating, and they had numbers, like Q numbers of like 257, 273. In other words, they were number 250 or 270 on the list. And, you know, when I talked to IT, they did about 10 a month. So they were never going to get to these things. And why they could just let them sit is just beyond me, but they did. So you got to be watching out for things like that. That's definitely something to watch out for. Very good. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, what else? What else? How about this one? The staff will never buy in. Won't buy it. How about that? Do you ever hear that one? No? How about we're too busy? All of these things are going to challenge. Oh, go ahead. All of these things are going to challenge you, right? So there's all sorts of recipes that you can come about this, but very straightforward. The key thing is to plan. The key thing is to be able to use a process and communicate well as when you pick a project that really matters. So if your boss is saying, I know this is something that I really need to have done, you can put yourself a little bit on the hook and say, okay, this is the time to do it. I'm going to use this process. I'm going to do it right. And believe me, they're going to push. And that can really help a lot. Okay. I did want to at least point these out. I don't have instant answers for all of them, but there certainly will be various challenges. Okay. Now, let's see. We talked about the challenges and pitfalls. Okay. Now let's talk about the structure a little bit, and you know, maybe this will be where we end up stopping today, which is fine. Because a lot of the other stuff we can cover very quickly, and we spent a little more time getting set up. Six Sigma basically is going to run on three different things in terms of the high level. In high level, you want to be able to have something that is measuring success, and here we're just talking about sort of the program, right? So we want to have something, I think Tammy was the one who mentioned that a process, one process that we're going to pick to improve, it has to have, it has to be measurable, right? So if we're going to measure the gauge, or if we're going to put a gauge on whether projects are successful or not, we have to have some sort of measurement. We have to have some sort of infrastructure for that, some team structure, and we have to have a behavior and culture that support it. Now I'm just going to show you the way that GE would present this, that present their Six Sigma program, what the projects are, who are the players, and I just want to present this to you as something that you can see, and if you're starting a program, you can think about, okay, how would I put together this program, or how could I advise somebody to put together this program? This is not directly helpful necessarily for your direct project, but for maybe selecting or maybe looking at a portfolio of projects, it is. So this is the in GE. There's a couple of statisticians actually, Snee and Hurl, who are I know them both. Ron Snee's a heck of a guy. And Roger has been up in, I think he's been mostly at GE. They did a pretty deep study in 2003, and they looked at successful deployments versus unsuccessful deployments of Six Sigma. And what they found was not surprising at all. They found that leadership commitment was huge. They found that use of top talent was huge. In other words, don't just use any warm body, but use people who are good. That, I think, would apply to almost the success of almost anything. But the third thing that they found was something where there was supporting infrastructure, where there was a formal selection process for the projects, where there was a formal review process for the projects, where there were real sources, where there were resources, for example, full-time black belts. Most companies don't do that anymore. And where there was, and this is another key thing that was in there, where there's financial system integration. So where projects were a success or were gauged on how well they did financially, that those actually counted within the finance department. So Dan and John, within your sphere of influence, integrating this, integrating the success of projects into the financial system, that's a big thing. Additional best practices that they found were formal selection of people for who gets in, just-in-time training of black belts, and that's what we're talking about now, is choosing a project if you can. And also, surprisingly, a consistent use of a roadmap, which I'm going to give you a roadmap, and we'll be able to execute on that. So those I think all those are pretty interesting things and interesting to consider. I'm going to go ahead and move a little bit about this. I'm going to have you read this a little bit later. I don't think there's going to be anything too surprising. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about the infrastructure. I want to put up a picture because I think that this is going to help. Here's the GE program of at least what it was in about circa 2007. They had a executive steering committee which managed a portfolio of projects. They had a project selection and people selection committee that chose the teams. They had Lean Six Sigma projects, but they also had other type of projects. Lean Six Sigma projects are deemed as improvement projects. So I think it was Steve who said improve efficiency is one of the things we want to do. Great. So you might have a improve improve accuracy is a good one. So improve invoice accuracy might be a project that would be a great improvement project to work on. Fits great with our paradigm. There's other types of projects that are in there. So, for example, there may be a design project, a redesign project. You can use the methods that we're going to talk about for design, but it's not absolutely ideal. There's another process called Design for Six Sigma that handles design projects. There are other types of projects. One is called a Kaizen. Kaizen just means improvement, and it comes from Japan. It's a Japanese word, and it's come in America to mean very short burst improvement of events, even as short as a half a day. We're not learning that either. We're not going to be focusing on how to improve things in half a day. We're talking about meteor projects that will take, generally speaking, anywhere from a couple months to, well, a couple to 4 months. There's coaching and support for that, and there's training for that. So that's the program infrastructure. And then here's the team infrastructure that would support a team. Now, you may or may not have this. Again, this is the GE structure. In a lot of ways, it's kind of ideal. There's executive leadership that is connected with a core team, which is led usually by a black belt and some team members. There's some technical support that comes in, and these are people that would be used on an as-needed basis, generally speaking. That could be from IT, it could be from finance, human resources. And then there's some extended team members, maybe some SMEs who you might want to use every once in a while, but you don't want to pull them out of work to be on a team every meeting. There's a champion and a master black belt who come and help as needed. The champion is somebody who gets things unstuck from a high level. The black belt is somebody who gets things unstuck from a technical level, the master black belt. So that's kind of the team infrastructure that's there. Okay. All right. And I'm going to ask you to read some of these roles, but we'll just kind of talk through them pretty quickly. There's a few things that are in here that are important. A champion, we mentioned that before. That's where the champion is. That's somebody who is usually a fairly high-level individual who can work to help get things sort of politically unstuck. And then there are the belts. Black belt, green belt, and yellow belts is now in there, and a master black belt. And this is basically the description of them. A master black belt is usually a full-time person. I'm playing the role of master black belt in here. They can be a teacher, but and a technical coach. Generally speaking, that's who the master black belt is. A black belt is usually a person who's received a lot of process improvement training and is at a place in the company where they're highly respected. And they're really a person who can handle fairly projects that are fairly big in scope and valuable, very valuable. A green belt is more of a technical project leader. They can handle small improvement projects. For example, we talked about maybe improving efficiency in a call center, maybe improve handling time in a call center. A black belt might handle multiple call centers, whereas a green belt might handle a single call center or a single department within a call center. Same problem. And then yellow belts are people who are team members who assist the black belts in doing things if they can, collecting data, helping map a process out, things like that. Providing specific technical knowledge of a product or of a service. Okay, before we move on, what questions do you have about the roles? Okay. Okay, I am going to, let's see, I'm going to move on.
Sure.
And, oh, go ahead.
I said sure. Okay, to move on.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. Keeping in mind that we're talking about a lot of high-level things, and a lot of things are coming at you. We did talk about, I want us to think about 3 types of project methodologies, at least here. There's probably more, but in our world we're going to often encounter 3. There are improvement projects, which we talked about, and we made the distinction between design projects. Now, the reality is that many design projects have improvement project parts in them, and many improvement projects have design parts in them. No question about it. We may be called, if we're trying to, let me go back to that call center. If we're trying to improve call center in, let's say, the handling time in a call center, it may force us to redesign a script. That's okay. That may be a small thing. A design project that I'm thinking about would be something radically different, like redesign an entire collection system at a bank, or redesign an entire quote and underwrite and quote system at an insurance company. So I'm talking about, a big design project. And then the third thing I want us to think about is something that we'll often say are just do-it projects. Those are kind of like the Kaizens that I talked about. Some things are just so, we know that they're just right because maybe we have a lot of history, or we're willing to take the chance that they're just right, and we're just going to go ahead and do them. If those are true, if we do have a just do it, we shouldn't waste time defining it and measuring it and analyzing it and running an improvement project if we already know the answer. So try and at least, when you're going into selecting projects, think about those paradigms. What we're trying to hit, at least in this class right here, is this sweet spot. And I realize a number of you, oh, here we go. We're trying to hit this sweet spot for this class. So what are some projects that would be good for this one? Let's just list up a couple of things that I've thought of, and maybe you can add to the list. So at a hospital, for example, here are some good projects. So we might have something like reduce length of stay. At a hospital. Why is that a good project? Well, it has a measurable metric, length of stay, and it may be, if we could target it maybe a little bit more, maybe for their ER, or maybe for their operating room, or something like that, or post-op, OR post-op. It has a measurement. It involves a specific team. It's an improvement project. They're talking about reducing something rather than redesigning something. That could be a great one. In a manufacturing area, we might be able to talk about something like improved accuracy, accuracy of invoice, or reduce defects in finished goods. Or if we were at a warehouse, it might be reduce a certain type of shrinkage. That's inventory that goes away somehow. It could be theft, it could be spoilage, it could be breakage. Right? So all those are excellent. So we could also reduce downtime. All right. The key, however, is to essentially say, you know, look, if I have an improvement, if it's an improvement type of thing, if it has a lot to do with the customer, right? If it's valuable to the customer, if it's clearly if it has a good business case, if I can do it in, let's just say, 3 to 6 months. If this is going to be one of those things that's going to be a year-long thing, it'll still work, but it's going to be a heavier lift. There's no question about it. And maybe I can even make that 2 to 6. And if I have a team, right? I have to have a black belt and maybe others. A lot of people ask sort of what's the ideal size for a team. For this, what we're talking about, the ideal size team is a black belt plus maybe max of 3 or 4 core people. You don't want it to be huge. If you have a huge team, you're gonna move very slowly, and that's not going to work so well. That doesn't mean that you can't have an extended team. All right. So anyway, so here are some ideas that you can work with. Hospital, maybe another in the service industry. We could talk about capacity, right size capacity in a call center, improve capacity. That's often a good one. All right, lead time. All right. Anyway, those are the sorts of projects that we're looking at. Hopefully that makes sense to folks. Okay, and here's just a little a flow chart for this. Some people find this helpful, some people don't. Some people like the flow chart method, some people like a grid method. Here's the flow chart method. Start from if you know the solution. If it is, then that's a process management. You're done. Just do it. If you don't know, you ask the question if it's a new product or process. If it is, then we've got a design process, and we end it. We're really talking about the stuff on the right-hand side, and all of that goes into DMAIC Six Sigma or DMAIC Lean. It's okay. Right now, we're just going to not make a distinction. If we don't know the solution, and it's not a new project, it's not a design project, it's probably a decent Six Sigma project. Now we just have to frame up, do we have the business value for doing it, and do we have the people to do it? If we do, we're golden. Okay. Here's another way of thinking about it. Some people like to look at a grid to do this. I'm on slide 67. Some people like to look at a grid and decide based on the grid. So you can see right here we've got the different projects, and we're scoring them on various things, like what's the opportunity to improve revenue, how about growth? I'm not exactly sure what the distinction is there. Is this going to improve employee satisfaction? How easy is it to complete? What's the current performance gap? What's the customer satisfaction gap, etc. Okay. Well, I think that what I want to do is take the opportunity to stop now, and what we're going to do is we'll pick it up back on. What we'll do is we'll pick it up. This is now talking about people selection. We talked about project selection. We'll talk about people selection. We're using the same thing. We're using a grid to help us make a decision. This is called a prioritization matrix. We'll have more on that throughout the class. There's a lot of tools that are basically prioritization matrices. You can use them for all sorts of things, selecting projects, selecting people, selecting case management tools for IT, whatever. And then there's a little bit of talk about portfolio management. I think this is interesting to read, but I don't want to spend time in class really talking, or in the session really talking about it. So what I'd like to do is just kind of start back on, when we come back, on the Six Sigma background. We'll pick this up on Friday. We'll pick it up at slide 80. So we're a little bit behind, but again, that's to be expected since we spent a little bit of extra time with introductions and getting all the stuff down, the files and such. So for Friday, I'm not going to hit you with any homework, but I do have a couple of asks. What I wanted to ask for Friday is if you could download either from Dropbox or Mike, I'm going to assume that you're all set from the Straight Line FTP site. It's not really an FTP, but
yeah, it worked for me.
All right, awesome. The additional files, and those are data for week 1 through 4, week 4, and week 5 through 8. There are some project management aids. That was the snapshot. Whoops. The snapshot, and also the PowerPoint. And please do download the DMAIC Navigator. Oh. See if I can spell. So those are the asks, and that's it. And what you'll get from me today is you'll get a number. You'll get an email with a number for the Friday set for Friday. So a call-in number for Friday for afterward, right, for the office hours. And you'll also get assignment number 1. And we will go over. You don't have to do anything with it. We'll go over it on Friday. I'll let you know everything that you need to do in it. And the first assignment is sort of a. I don't want to overstate this, but it's sort of a let's ease on into this class assignment. Okay, it shouldn't be too taxing. All right, guys, and gals. Thanks for a great first session, and we will see you on Friday. Remember, if you want to call or email 607-227-8719. We'll see you on Friday.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you.